Welcome to Cool Factor Cards. It's a dance party. What are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about how if you want to take your hobby, level it up, and be a seller, we got the expert here, Josh Fox.
So you're setting up at your first card show, Josh.
Yep.
Josh is somebody who I met at a card show. He's guesting today. What do I need to know setting up at my first show, brother?
All right, so setting up at a show can be a little bit intimidating, but it's really not that hard if you just follow a few key steps. First one, be prepared, okay? Price your stuff the night before.
I made this mistake the first time.
Yep.
I did not price my stuff, and I spent my whole day comping stuff.
You sure did, and I had the hardest time helping you.
Keeping up. Yep.
Yep.
Very big personal piece of advice. I can speak from experience. Don't mess this one up.
Yeah, you don't want to get to the show, let's say an hour before people get there, and you're frantically on 130 point trying to find comps. It's just not the way to do it. Just spend a little bit of time the night before, you're good.
Okay, now you and I had a debate before we started this episode, though.
We did have it. A heated debate.
Of how you price those items, though.
Yep. Different strokes, different folks, you know?
So, what's your philosophy?
So the way I like to do it is I look at what the comps are. So I usually look at maybe the last 5 or 10, depending on the card and how frequently it sells. If I know that a card comps for a certain price, I'll typically sticker it for a little bit over. It's just my personal strategy because everybody will walk up to your table and they'll look up comps, and people want to feel like they got a deal.
So you mean, so let's say a card's worth about $200. You know it comps at 200. You're listing it where?
Max 225.
Okay.
Maybe it's 220, maybe it's 215.
You put a 10%-ish.
Yeah, never more than 10% because I don't want people to walk away thinking I'm unreasonable, right? We've had other
You're
conversations.
leaving
around
negotiating
buyers.
room in there.
Yeah, and people will look up comps. They'll say, "Hey, comps are really 220. Would you take 175?" I'll say, "How about we land at 185 or 190?" Right? I'll come down off comps. I don't mind it, but I want people to feel like they're getting a deal they're comfortable with,
And they're having a good
time. Because what I used to do was I would sticker everything right at comps, and if that $200 card was stickered at 200, they come in at 150.
Then you're losing.
And they want to feel like they're getting a great
So
deal.
it's kind of a set yourself up for success strategy.
So we're kind of jumping ahead to one of the other points, but I think it makes sense to just bring up right here, which is when you're a seller, ideally you're buying at a discount, right? So I might have bought something for somewhere between, let's say, 70 and 80% of comps. If I get a good deal on the card, I'm more than comfortable selling it under comps to someone else. So what I try to do is buy low, sell low.
Okay, give me a math example here.
Sure. So we'll use this 200 number because that's where you just were. Let's say I bought that $200 card for 75% of comps. So 150, okay? If I'm into it for 150 and someone offers me 180, I'm gonna take that all day.
Even though it's less than what
even
it's
though it's
worth.
less than comps. Now, other people who are professional dealers, they might not. They might want to maximize their return because they've got to pay for things like all of their operating costs, right? They've got to pay maybe some employees at a card shop. I don't have that kind of overhead. All I have to do is go buy a card and go sell a
for
card.
you, it's like you literally got back the money for the card plus your $30.
You're taking
on top of
profit
that.
where you can take
I'm
profit.
taking a little bit of profit because I'm not in this as my profession.
Yeah.
So I do it for fun. I do it as a hobby. If I can make a couple bucks, great. I also sometimes just sell things for exactly what I bought it for. Just happens.
You just got to know when it's the right time to move.
If there are things that I haven't been able to move and someone's interested in a card, I'll just sell it and make sure that I get my money back. And someone will get a really good deal, but I didn't lose anything.
I can speak from experience on that too. There's
No,
times
no.
where I've bought a card that was like comped at $40. I bought it for 30, which is a great deal. But I can't move it for 40. So I just get my $30 back from somebody who's happy to take it. And you know what? I'm happy with it at the end of the day.
I mean, $30 is better than no bucks.
That's true.
It's very true. Put it on a billboard.
Sometimes it's just getting cash back in your pocket so you can go make the next deal.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the sunk cost fallacy?
No.
Okay. Have you?
No.
Okay. The sunk cost fallacy basically is this economic concept where you buy something at a particular price, and let's say the price goes down. So maybe I bought that that $200 card for $150, but now it's worth $100.
Ooh.
So I'm actually behind, right? I'm down $50.
Yeah, you're down $50.
The sunk cost fallacy basically says that you're losing money by holding that card, waiting for it to come back up to $150 when I could have just sold the card for $100 and just did multiple other deals to recoup those funds in other ways in a faster timeline. So ultimately, it's about the velocity of money and getting your money working for you faster.
Look at you sounding all smart.
Oh
I
my
feel
God.
like
Jeez.
we've had conversations like this about people holding cards and thinking that it's gonna go, and then it turns into this point where there's no turning point after that. You
Nearly
lose
everybody's
complete
lost at some
gusto,
point.
and then you're like, well, now I'm holding onto a card that I can't get rid of, and it's just depreciating and depreciating and depreciating, and you're like, well, what now?
Have you ever talked to a dealer who said, "Oh, I can't sell it for that because I'm into
in
it.
on it for
I'm
this
into it
much."
for more."
Yeah,
Yep.
I hate
I've heard that.
phrase.
That makes no sense.
I try to just never say that when I'm set up at a show, because if I'm into it for more, but I know that I
That was
can't
your
move,
bad.
yeah. If I know that I can't move that card, I'll take the money even if it's at a loss.
I've heard that many of times being behind the table, just people around,
Yep.
and heard them say that. I'm like, well, you know, you are in it. You're kind of subjecting yourself being behind a table and making that risk buying it in the first place.
You just have to make peace with where the market is
Yeah.
at that moment. I mean, it
Yes.
is. Because the next deal, you're going to come up somewhere else and you're going to lose somewhere else, and ultimately you're going to balance out. That's the hope.
There are a lot of people still holding stuff from the COVID peak because they don't want to take losses on it. And we're just years past that.
See,
I'm
and
just
I think
missing
that's
out
where
on the
your
bottom
logic
bracket.
comes in, is like, okay, well, if you're going to put $30 on top of it, or if I'm just going to get my $150 back and call it, like, that is so much smarter than just holding it and being like, well, you know, I'm $150 into it, and because you want to give me $145, I'm not going to sell the card.
Yeah. I get
We could
it.
probably do a whole episode on that.
This could be everything.
What you got next?
Okay. So, second one I have. So, get there early.
Oh, we're only on number 2.
We'll rapid fire through these, buddy. Don't worry.
What you got?
2 and 3 are going to be combined, okay? You've priced your stuff. You get there early. You should be able to put everything in your case in no time. Walk around. Talk to the other dealers. Build relationships. Look at what they have. Maybe you make a deal. Just kind of depends. But your network is your net worth. So you got to socialize. You got to build the relationships.
So the buyer and the sellers both, if you're on the buyer side or the seller side at a show, both advice is get there early. I mean, there seems to be a theme is get there early, both for getting a good deal up front, but you mentioned something real important, which is making friends, which is building your network.
Yep.
I know that is the community, and you will find more deals, more opportunities based on the people that you know.
Yep.
I
That is
mean,
great
you've
advice.
done that the last 2 shows. You came home with 2 great cards. One of them happened to be someone that was walking around as a buyer,
Oh, 'cause
and the
you make
other one
friends,
was
yeah.
because of a seller. So it goes to show you, like, and you've told me many a times, like, I need to get there early because that's when everything happens. You know, so I do really think that that's valuable information from you and from you,
Yep.
obviously.
Yeah. And I will say, I have a few other dealers in the Charlotte area that I now see over and over and over again, and we've done multiple deals. You get these like friends and family discounts when you're working with them too. There are times where I'll go into a dollar box with a couple dealers that I know, and they might have stuff stickered at, $10, and they say, just take it, Josh. Right?
I think you get to that point too, where especially if it's your PC,
Yeah.
like these guys, you've built a relationship. They want to hook you up, and I'm sure in return you find something that they like, and you'll return the favor at some point.
You bring gifts to these guys, right? It's like, hey, I had this thing. Nobody's gonna look for a Mike Piazza, for example, right?
That's me.
If I find,
That's a huge market. Stop giving me crap for it.
sorry, man.
Piazza market is big. Piazza collectors. You're with me.
All the power to you. All right, so
We've learned from experience, though, because you did that to me on my first card show that I went to with you.
I did do that
So
to
you
you.
had like I can't remember how much you had it priced for, but you gave me one and then I bought one from you. And both of them are so awesome. They're both Michael Jordan cards, but you ended up, I think the first one you're like, just take it. I'm like, I felt so bad. I was like,
well-
are you serious?
Let's not feel. Don't give me too much praise. It was a $30 card, but we're friends. So like to me, that $30 is nothing. right? Like, I'd rather get your Jordan PC up and running and you have a good experience. So
But that's community.
that is
Just to show
community.
you.
Yep.
So what's number 3?
Okay, so next one I have, know what the current hype is. So let's say baseball season is upcoming. Everybody's going to bring their baseball cards. You want to bring some of the stuff that people will be looking for, but the actual advice here is don't be afraid to zag.
I feel like I've heard you say this before. Like,
Wait
I
a
know
minute.
baseball's going
What
to be
is
hot,
that?
so I'm bringing football.
Right. So when everybody zigs, sometimes you got to zag. So if everybody's bringing baseball or everybody's got football or basketball, whatever the sport is at the moment,
Okay.
sometimes I just do the exact opposite because I might be the only person there that has football cards during the middle of June.
That's heavy on that,
right?
yeah.
And sometimes you just won't sell a ton, but sometimes you're gonna be like the table that everybody's looking for because you're the only one with the thing that's different. Everybody might have Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout and Mookie Betts and blah blah blah, all the baseball guys. But then I might have, Brady and Mahomes and some other things on my table that just stands out. So just don't be afraid to be different. That's the real advice there. Okay. Next one. Think about the buyer experience in terms of the actual layout of your case. So I try to organize mine by sport, so it's easy to scroll
That's smart. Yeah,
side to side, right? It's like, okay, this roll's all
That seems
baseball.
entry level.
It's very basic. We'll get to the 2.0 version
Don't
of this.
give me a collage of cards.
Yeah.
Please
Don't make-
organize by sport at a minimum.
Don't make me think. I just want to do less when I'm there, right? Just like robot scanning
It
through all
almost
the cards.
seems easier to buy that way.
That's part of the reason why as a seller you want to do that, right?
Almost seems easier to be like, that one. Perfect.
Now, the other extensions of this, put the cards that have the most eye appeal either towards the front or in the middle. Kind of depends on the shape and location of your case in the room. And also go around your table and look at it from the buyer's perspective. I've had multiple instances where the glare from lights in, like, let's say a hotel room or wherever they're doing the show will make it very difficult to see a particular row in your case. So I might rearrange some of the things that would have been the stuff that I want people to see in the middle of my case might end up at the top or in the bottom or in a corner because people can't see it as well. So
I can say
strategic.
I feel like because I've literally done this 3 or 4 times. I've set up as a dealer, so I'm new in this, but I've definitely realized very quickly that there's the players that are liquid, and then there's the things that I might have in my collection or the stuff that I'm trying to move that is less liquid. Those fringe players. And I needed to spotlight the stuff that I knew was going to move, the stuff that I knew was going to be popular in the middle, and put some of that fringy stuff on the outside for sure.
Let me ask this question. So let's say you go to a venue and it has horrible lighting. And you're like, okay, next year if I come back, I want to do it my way. Is it worth bringing like a light or some kind of source to make it look better?
I've never thought of that. I'm actually not sure. But you did also remind me of something that you told me about last time we were at a show together.
Oh, the tablecloth trick?
Tablecloth trick.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell them about the tablecloth trick? Because
It's
I
not much
never
of a
thought
trick. Is put a damn tablecloth down.
Nah, but there's a reason why.
So we went to a show where it was just plastic tables. You got a whole bunch of picnic tables, and I was the one guy with a black tablecloth. Even if you set up at a show where they provide tablecloths, because we've been to shows where they do provide tablecloths, draping your tablecloth over that one, I think can really separate you. So like, we're Cool Factor Cards, and I'm hoping that very soon we have a teal and purple Cool Factor Cards tablecloth to drape over. In the sea of black tablecloths or white tablecloths, we're the purple and teal one. That's going to draw some attention for sure.
It's your marketing campaign.
Quite honestly, like, it's unappealing because the last time that we all did a show together, we did the black tablecloth. So when I went to other people's tables and they didn't have a tablecloth at all, it was almost like that was like an ick. Like, it was like, there was like something about it that I was just like, oh, this is like not refined.
And I think that's the point. So you could be setting up at a huge show, and you could be setting up at a small local show. And I think it's worth scouting that show out. Like, maybe go as a buyer the first time. I think setting up as a seller first is probably a terrible idea. Like, scout it out.
But it's like eye appeal. Like, that makes it look sexy.
But
and if you think about like contrast and like the whole contour and highlight thing, it's like you're kind of playing tricks with the eye with the black tablecloth as well as the white.
You're peacocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
essentially.
peacocking.
But even the way you set up your table, to get back to kind of the point we were talking about, like highlighting, certain things over others, like setting up your table where you got a showcase in the middle versus to the right versus a dollar box over here versus whatever, like how you set that table up really does matter.
One thing you've done that I think is so smart is you put cards like this mantle. I don't know if anybody can see on YouTube. It is, gosh, Josh, do you want to explain what this card is? I don't even think I
sure.
can.
So this is the 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 9-4. I got these cards your mother threw out, reprints of Mickey Mantle, but they stop everybody to look.
You put your cards on these little stands. Somebody sees a 52 Mantle on your table, they're gonna stop
do double
all
take.
the time.
Double take.
All
day.
the time.
And that's why I have it. Is entirely, I don't expect to sell it, but I will. And I get so many questions, so many conversations, and that really is kind of what it boils down to. Is I want to talk to as many people as possible, and if I can stop them for half a second.
Also, what I think I've noticed, and I think you got him onto this, was the cases. And those make a magnificent difference, and this is why I will tell you that. When you were set up for the first time with cases, you had individuals set up, you had a case, and you had dollars. Everybody that came by looked in the case first.
So having a case, I think your eye is automatically attracted to that thing that has perceived value. And there's a second half of that, which is actually security. Like there probably is things of value in that case.
100%.
And that's actually a tip that I would make, is I think you need to, if you carry any cards that actually have value, they need to have some layer of obstruction in front of them. There's so many hands and so many people moving at these shows.
But statistically, let's say you had 2 cases and you had all of the ones on that side.
Well, here's the stuff I've spewed on the table.
Yeah, so all the ones spewed on the table were in a case. And then you have your other, let's say your caviar of your collection in this case. And then you have your dollars. Would you say that you think those would sell equally just because they're marketed the same way?
As a seller, there's actually a point that some people will actually, as a buyer, there's a whole buyer-seller dynamic here. Yeah, go for it. If you
Can I give you my thoughts on this?
Yeah.
So,
because what I spew on the table actually has strategy just as much as what goes in the case.
I'm sure, and you're both bringing up really interesting points. So the showcase, right? Like, definitely a little bit of a security. So what I do, turn the showcase around so it only opens on my side and it's under lock and key, so nobody can ever reach in and yank something and run. So you're right about the security side of things. But it kind of depends a bit on what you have and the eye appeal of those things. So like some of the stuff that ends up, as you said, spewed on the side, right? It might be lower value but bigger names. Like sometimes I would do like $30 Kobe rookies, right?
A bunch of $5, $10, $20, and $30 cards that are just kind of.
You've got a lot of cool stuff that has great eye appeal that sometimes wouldn't be showcased as well inside of the case itself, but when it's out in the open, someone might walk by and do a double take and come look. So there's a strategy in what goes in the case. Okay, so you've kind of hinted at this a little bit, but important to know, you have to have a dollar box. So I'm sure, like all of us and all the people at home, you rip boxes, you end up with those cards that you probably don't want to keep.
Yeah.
I have sold more cards from $1, $2, $3, $5, $10 bins than I probably have ever sold out of my case.
Just on a per unit basis, you're going to sell more of that bulk stuff. And you're going to miss out. If you are setting up a show and you don't set up a value box, you're going to miss out on commerce. Plain and simple.
Well, also, a lot of people go there specifically to look at the dollar boxes. So if you don't have one, you just get
For some people, that's their target.
Which is actually funny because if you walk around the show, like the small one that we did, right? It was like 50 people. There was so many people that didn't have a dollar box.
Yeah.
That I was like, wow, this is insane. Like, you guys both had them, but I went to multiple tables that had like big priced pieces and no dollar box.
And honestly, I think it's the thing that could speak to everybody. I could be the person that goes in there looking for a $300, $500, $700 card and come across a great $5 card that I was just like, that one's me, I'm taking it.
Yeah.
It speaks to everybody.
That's your Chris thing. That's totally Chris
All right.
thing.
Do you want to know my number one most important piece of advice when you set up at a card shop?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Okay. Bring food and water. I can't tell you how many times I go to a show. I'll get there maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'll eat an early breakfast, and then I don't eat again until I'm home, which is probably 5 or 6 p.m. I've had no water, no food. I've been scrolling on my phone for hours, making chit-chat with 15-year-old kids who are hustling me out of deals. Like, there just is no more important thing than taking care of your body and your mind when you're at these shows.
Sure.
And it's always a little bit easier when you have someone with you, but like when you're solo, like me at a lot of these shows, I just don't eat and I don't drink. So
honestly,
I've gotten better at bringing stuff, but man,
I feel like this loops around to community. And
Yeah.
this is why, because there's been times that like you had to run or you had to go somewhere, and it's like we got to spot your table.
If I could throw in like a handful of like bonus, like here's my pieces of advice. Having a buddy, you and I worked a table side by side one time.
It was awesome.
His table was there, mine was adjacent, and we spotted each other. And having either having your buddy that sets up with you or making really good friends with the person next to you, I think is really good advice. I know that I was just thinking, like, one of my number one pieces of advice is don't be a dick. If you're gonna be, if you're gonna set up at a show, talk to people, be friendly. Like, you're gonna have more transactions with the guy that is fun to talk to.
There's also sexism for sure. Like me walking around as a girl and having you be a vendor and not be able to be with me.
I think as a vendor, you have to talk to the men, the kids, the women. Like, you need to be able
at least
to
say hi. Like, I think at least say hi.
Well,
you
that's
don't
actually
have
a
to
tip
ask
in of
about
itself
my
is
collection.
greet everybody.
Just say hi. And I didn't get that. I walked around and literally it was crickets. Nobody talked to me.
And greeting is super valuable to help somebody feel welcome to your table.
Everybody that comes to our table.
But second, my number one piece of advice, I have my scripts, right? My one-liner, right? My one-liner is, what do you collect? I want to know that person who's coming to my table, what they're into. Because very simply, I know my table better than anybody.
Yeah.
What do you collect? Oh, I'm a Steelers fan. Great. I got 3 Steelers over in this corner that you probably didn't see because they were off in the corner. These are the cards you might be interested in. I've made deals because I drew their attention to something that they didn't even realize was there.
Or quite honestly, you might strike up a conversation with someone and maybe they don't buy anything from your table, but they're cool people. Like, we've had that a few times where people have stopped by.
Hey!
Right? That's how these
we
two
became
met.
friends. Yeah.
But it's like we've had people that have come by, even like the last one that I worked, and I was like, these are cool people. And maybe you don't buy from me. I don't care. You're cool. You know, and it's good to have a good conversation with people. I just think that's important.
No, I think it's a super good point. And
like,
ultimately,
hi, how are you? That goes a long way.
Look, that's why we're doing the show, is we want to meet more of you guys. We want to see more of you guys in public. We're organizing a trade night, like, as a group because we want to connect with the community more.
Yes, sir.
It's value. Well, Josh, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it. The.cardfox on Instagram.
There we
Find
go.
me.
That's him.
Yeah.
And we'll see you at the next show.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, you can do
Like,
that.
comment, subscribe for their sake, not
Do
for me.
it. We love you all.
Peace.